We agreed this marriage was only on paper, so why did Caleb look like he was ready to tear apart the man buying me a drink? The agreement had been simple. His father's house. My signature. One legal arrangement. No feelings. No jealousy. No pretending when no one was watching. That was the rule Caleb wrote himself, in black ink, at my kitchen table 3 months before everything fell apart. But rules sound easy when no one is testing them. They sound clean when your heart is not standing in a crowded bar, holding a drink from a stranger, while the man you have loved for 12 years watches from across the room like he has finally realized someone else might reach you first. I saw Caleb before he saw me seeing him. He stood near the back wall of the club, half hidden by blue neon and amber shadows, his tan jacket still damp from the rain outside. He was not supposed to be there. I had told him to stay home. I had told him I needed one night where I did not have to remember the ring on my finger was both the closest thing I had ever had to him and the cruelest joke we had ever played. Then Ryan smiled at me from the bar and slid a glass across the counter. "You look like someone who needs rescuing," he said. I almost laughed, because the only person I needed rescuing from had just crossed the room with a jaw tight enough to break. Before I could thank Ryan, a warm hand closed around my waist. Not rough. Not violent. Worse. Familiar. Caleb pulled me back against his chest like he had done it 100 times before, like I belonged there, like the entire room needed to understand something he had never been brave enough to say out loud. My breath caught. "What are you doing?" I whispered. "We're faking it, remember?" Caleb lowered his mouth near my ear, his voice low enough that only I could hear it. "I know," he said. "But he doesn't." And that was the first time I understood the most dangerous thing about a fake marriage: sometimes the lie is easier to believe than the truth. 3 months earlier, Caleb Hayes had shown up at my apartment at 11:47 at night, holding a folder against his chest like it was a wound. I had known Caleb since we were 15. Back then, he was the boy who fixed everyone's broken bike, carried extra pencils in his backpack, and pretended not to notice when I stared at him too long in the reflection of classroom windows. He was solid in a way that made people trust him before he even opened his mouth. I was not solid. I was the boy who drew houses I could never afford to live in, who kept feelings folded neatly behind jokes, who learned early that wanting your best friend was the kind of secret that could either make you poetic or destroy you. For 12 years, I chose poetry. Caleb chose silence. That night, when I opened the door, his eyes looked older than 29. His father had died 2 weeks before, leaving behind a lakeside cabin in Vermont, a woodworking shop, and a will full of conditions that sounded like they had been written by a man who had loved control more than comfort. Caleb needed to prove he had a stable family household before the estate transferred fully into his name. It was ridiculous. It was old-fashioned. It was cruel. And it was exactly the kind of thing Caleb would refuse to ask for help with until he had no other choice. "I need a favor," he said. I leaned against the doorframe and tried to smile. "You look like someone buried the favor in a graveyard." He did not smile back. He opened the folder and handed me a stack of papers. I read the words twice before they made sense. Marriage certificate. Temporary legal arrangement. Joint residence. Spousal declaration. My throat tightened. "Caleb." "It would only be on paper," he said quickly. 6 months. Maybe less. You wouldn't have to change anything. I'll pay for everything. Lawyer fees, paperwork, whatever. You can still live here. We just need the documents to show that you're married," I finished. He looked away. "That I have family." I should have said no. Any healthy person would have said no. Any person who had not spent half his life loving the same man in silence would have closed the folder, made coffee, and helped him find another solution. But Caleb looked like he was asking me to hold up the last wall of a house before it collapsed. And the worst part was, I wanted to be asked. Not for paperwork. Not for his father's house. I wanted, in some small foolish corner of my heart, to be the person he thought of when the word family became impossible to carry alone. So I said yes. Caleb exhaled like he had been underwater. Ethan, you don't have to, I know. This doesn't mean anything. I smiled because I was good at bleeding quietly. Of course. The courthouse ceremony lasted 11 minutes. There were no flowers, no friends, no music. Caleb wore a navy shirt and looked like he was attending a meeting he wanted to escape. I wore a beige coat over the sweater he once said made my eyes look warmer. The judge mispronounced my last name. Caleb corrected her immediately. I hated how much that hurt in a beautiful way. When she asked if we understood the nature of the agreement, Caleb said yes. When she asked me, I almost said no, because how was I supposed to understand standing beside the man I loved while he turned our almost marriage into a legal errand? But I said yes too. Outside the courthouse, Caleb handed me a silver ring. For appearances, he said. The ring was simple, cool against my palm, too light to carry the weight I gave it. Do I have to wear it? I asked. Only when needed. And when is that? Caleb glanced at the courthouse steps, then at me. When people are looking. I slid it onto my finger. He watched for half a second too long, then looked away. We made rules that night because rules were safer than feelings. Caleb wrote them on the back of an envelope while I made tea neither of us drank. Rule 1, separate rooms unless necessary. Rule 2, no public affection unless required. Rule 3, no calling each other husband in private. Rule 4, no jealousy. Rule 5, remember this is fake. He underlined the last one twice. You really think I need reminding? I asked. His pen stopped. I think we both do. I laughed softly. You're not the one in danger. He looked at me then, and for a second something moved behind his eyes. Something quick. Something scared. But Caleb was good at closing doors inside himself. He folded the envelope and slipped it into his pocket. 6 months, he said. Then we go back to normal. I wanted to ask him what normal meant. Was normal the way he left his jacket over my shoulders during football games in high school because I always forgot mine? Was normal the summer he slept on my bedroom floor after my parents separated because he said my apartment was too quiet? Was normal the way he remembered my coffee order, my bad knee, my fear of deep water, and the exact song that made me cry when I was 19? If that was normal, then I had never survived a single day of it. I had only learned how to live beside a door I was never allowed to open. The first month of our paper marriage was almost easy. Caleb stayed in Vermont most weekdays, working on the cabin and fighting with lawyers. I visited on weekends to sign documents, smile at neighbors, and stand close enough to be believable when estate people stopped by. The cabin sat near the lake, warm and stubborn, with cedar walls that smelled like winter and old smoke. Caleb had built half the furniture himself. He fixed the loose steps before I could trip on them. He replaced the broken lamp in the guest room because he remembered I hated sleeping in the dark. He stocked the kitchen with the cinnamon tea I liked even though he pretended he had bought it by accident. Those were the little things that made me stupid. Not grand speeches. Not dramatic touches. Just Caleb noticing me with a precision that felt like devotion if I let myself look at it too long. One Saturday morning, I found him outside splitting wood in the cold, sleeves pushed up, breath white in the air. He looked up when I stepped onto the porch. You'll freeze, he said. Good morning to you too. Your coat's inside. You sound like my husband. The axe stopped midair. I said it as a joke because sometimes pain needs a costume. Caleb stared at me for a long second. Then he looked down and split the log clean in half. Don't call me that unless someone's listening, he said. I smiled. Rule 3. Rule 3, he repeated. But his ears had gone red from something other than cold. Things began to shift after his mother visited. Mrs. Hayes was softer than Caleb's father had ever been, but grief had made her suspicious of happiness. She arrived with a casserole, a box of old photos, and the kind of eyes that could read a lie before it finished introducing itself. Caleb panicked. I could see it in his shoulders. So I did what any fake spouse with 12 years of practice loving him would do. I played the part perfectly. I touched his arm when he forgot to breathe. I handed him coffee before he asked. I laughed at his mother's stories, complimented the cabin, and pretended I did not feel Caleb's gaze every time I said the word we. Near the end of dinner, Mrs. Hayes looked at us over her glass. You two are gentler with each other than you realize. Caleb dropped his fork. I nearly choked on water. Mom, he said. She only smiled sadly. Your father never understood that love could be quiet. He thought if it didn't look the way he expected, it wasn't real. No one spoke after that. Later, while I washed dishes, Caleb stood beside me drying plates with unnecessary focus. You were good with her, he said. I like your mom. She liked you. That surprises you. He looked at the plate in his hand. No. It scares me. I turned off the faucet. Why? He did not answer. Instead, he reached over and brushed soap from my wrist with his thumb. It was nothing. It was everything. The kind of touch that lasted less than a second and ruined the rest of the night. By the second month, Caleb started breaking his own rules. At first it was small. His hand on the small of my back when we walked into the lawyer's office, even though no one was watching yet. His voice saying, Ethan, and I will handle it, before I could speak for myself. His body moving closer on the couch during a movie until our shoulders touched and neither of us moved away. One night, I woke up in the guest room to thunder shaking the windows. I found Caleb in the kitchen, barefoot, making tea. You okay? He asked. Storm woke me. He poured a second mug without asking. We sat at the kitchen table while rain hit the roof hard enough to sound like applause. I was wearing an old sweatshirt. He was wearing the grey shirt he slept in, his hair a mess, his guard lowered by exhaustion. For a moment, we looked like something real. Domestic. Dangerous. Do you ever think about what happens after? I asked. After what? After 6 months. His fingers tightened around his mug. We end it. Just like that. That was the plan. I nodded. The ring on my finger felt suddenly colder. Right. Caleb watched me for too long. Ethan. Don't. Don't what? Say my name like you're sorry for something you're still going to do. His face changed. Not anger. Not denial. Something worse. Recognition. But then his phone buzzed, and the moment disappeared under a lawyer's email and Caleb's talent for hiding. The bar happened because I got tired of being the only one haunted. It was a Friday night in Burlington. Caleb had spent the entire day arguing with the estate attorney, then came home silent and sharp-edged. I tried to ask if he wanted dinner. He said he was not hungry. I asked if he wanted to talk. He said there was nothing to talk about. Then I caught him staring at my ring while pretending to read a document, and something inside me snapped quietly. I'm going out, I said. His head lifted. Where? A bar. With who? I laughed once. That sounds dangerously close to jealousy. His jaw moved. I'm asking as your friend. Then as my friend, stay home. He looked at me like he wanted to say my name again, the way that always made me weaker. But he only nodded. Fine. I drove into town under rain that turned every streetlight into a blur. I did not go out to find someone. I went out to remember I existed beyond Caleb's confusion. The club was crowded, warm, loud enough to drown thought. I found a place at the bar and ordered something I barely wanted. For the first 20 minutes, I felt almost free. Then Ryan appeared beside me. He was handsome in a clean, easy way, with kind eyes and a smile that did not ask for too much. Rough night, he asked. Rough 3 months. He laughed. That sounds expensive. Emotionally, yes. He bought me a drink. I almost refused, then decided that refusing harmless kindness because of a fake husband who was probably at home pretending not to care was too pathetic even for me. Ryan asked if I was single. I looked down at the ring before I could stop myself. Complicated, I said. That usually means no. Tonight it means I don't know. He was about to respond when his gaze moved over my shoulder. Is that the complication? I turned. Caleb stood across the room. Still in his tan jacket. Still wet from the rain. Still looking at me like the world had narrowed to the space between Ryan's hand and my glass. I should have been angry. I was angry. But beneath it, shamefully, my heart lifted. Because Caleb had come. Because Caleb had ignored my request. Because Caleb, who insisted nothing between us was real, looked like he could not stand the possibility of someone else making me smile. He crossed the room slowly at first, then faster when Ryan leaned closer to say something I never heard. Caleb's hand found my waist before his voice did. He pulled me back against him, and every rule we had written burned to ash. Ryan raised both hands slightly. I didn't know he was with someone. Caleb's voice was calm, but his fingers tightened. He is. My breath stopped. I turned my head. Caleb. He did not look at Ryan. He looked at me. Like he was daring me to contradict him. Like he was begging me not to. What are you doing? I whispered. We're faking it, remember? His eyes dropped to my mouth for one terrible second before returning to mine. I know, he said. But he doesn't. Ryan stepped back with a polite, confused smile and disappeared into the crowd. I should have stepped away too. Instead, I stood there with Caleb's hand still at my waist, surrounded by music and strangers, feeling more exposed than I ever had in silence. You don't get to do that, I said. Do what? Act like I'm yours when you only want me on paper. The words hit him. I felt it in the way his body went still behind me. Ethan. I pulled away and faced him. No. You wrote the rules. No jealousy. Remember. I wasn't jealous. Then what was that? He looked toward the place Ryan had been, then back at me. His face was tight with all the things he had spent years not saying. I didn't like the way he looked at you. I laughed, but it came out wounded. People are allowed to look at me. Not like that. Why? He said nothing. The silence answered badly enough. I moved toward the exit. Caleb followed. Outside, the rain had softened to mist, and the alley behind the club smelled like wet brick and old cigarettes. Neon reflected in puddles at our feet. I turned on him. Say it. His chest rose and fell. Say what? Say why you followed me here. Say why you grabbed me. Say why you looked at him like he was taking something from you. Caleb wiped rain from his face, buying time he did not deserve. I was protecting you. From a man buying me a drink. You don't know him. I know you. That stopped him. My voice broke before I could control it. I know you, Caleb. I know when you're scared. I know when you're lying. I know when you want something and hate yourself for wanting it. He looked away. Don't. Don't what? Tell the truth. We've been married for 3 months and somehow I'm still the only one stupid enough to feel anything. You think I don't feel anything? His voice cracked on the last word, and the sound went through me like a match in the dark. For 1 second, neither of us moved. Then I looked at his left hand. He was still wearing the ring. He had not needed to. No lawyer was watching. No neighbor. No mother. Just rain, brick, and me. Why are you still wearing it? I asked. Caleb looked down like he had forgotten the ring existed, which was impossible. His thumb moved over it once. Habit. I nodded slowly. Right. Habit. I reached for my own ring. His eyes snapped up. Ethan. No, my fingers shook as I pulled it off. It resisted for half a second, as if even the metal wanted me to be braver than this. When it finally came free, my hand felt naked. I placed the ring in Caleb's palm and closed his fingers around it. There, I said. No more confusion. He stared at his closed fist. Rain clung to his lashes. Don't do this. Why not? Because what? His mouth opened. No words came. That was Caleb. Always arriving 1 second too late to save me from the silence he created. I walked away before I could beg him to finish the sentence. Back at the cabin, I packed badly. Shirts unfolded. Books thrown into bags. My sketchpad jammed between sweaters. I told myself I was leaving because I had dignity, though dignity looked a lot like crying into a suitcase at 2 in the morning. Caleb did not come after me for nearly an hour. In that hour, I found the letter. It was tucked inside the drawer of the desk Caleb had built for me, though he had claimed it was just an old spare table he fixed up. My name was written on the envelope in his careful block letters. Ethan. I should not have opened it. But heartbreak has never made me polite. The letter was dated 3 weeks after our courthouse ceremony. The paper had been folded and unfolded so many times the creases were soft. I read the first line and had to sit down. I asked you to marry me because I was scared of losing the house. But I chose you because I was more scared of losing you. The room tilted. I kept reading. Caleb had written about the night he first realized he loved me. Not at the courthouse. Not at the cabin. Years ago, when we were 21 and I fell asleep on his couch after a terrible day, still holding a pencil in my hand. He wrote that he had wanted to brush hair from my forehead and had hated himself for wanting it. He wrote that every girlfriend he tried to love had eventually asked the same question, why does Ethan always come first? He wrote that when his father's will demanded proof of family, my name was the only one that came to mind, and that terrified him so much he almost burned the papers before asking me. Then the line that broke me clean open, I keep telling him it is fake because if I say it is real, I will have to admit I have been using paperwork as an excuse to stand close to the person I have loved for years. The front door opened. I did not move. Caleb stepped inside quietly, soaked from the rain, face pale. He saw the letter in my hand, and all the fight left him. You weren't supposed to find that. I laughed through tears. That seems to be a theme. Tonight. He closed the door behind him. Ethan, I can explain. Can you? He swallowed. I was afraid. Of me? Of wanting you. I looked at him then. Really looked. Caleb Hayes, the strongest person I knew, standing in front of me like a man who had built every wall himself and only now realized he was trapped inside them. You let me think I was alone in this, I said. His eyes reddened. I know. You let me wear that ring like a joke. I know. You let me fall apart trying to understand you. His voice broke. I know. The anger in me had nowhere to go, because he was not defending himself. He was standing there taking every word because he knew I had earned them. Why tonight? I asked. Why him? Caleb looked down at the ring still in his hand. My ring. Because when he looked at you, I saw what I had been asking you to do. What? Wait for someone brave enough to choose you. I stopped breathing. He stepped closer, not enough to touch. And I hated him for maybe being that person when I was the one who should have been brave years ago. The cabin was silent except for rain tapping the windows. You don't get to fix this with one confession, I said. I know. You don't get to make me trust you just because you finally got jealous. I know. And you don't get to call this real only because I tried to leave. Caleb nodded, tears finally slipping down his face. I know. Then he placed both rings on the table between us. Mine and his. 2 small circles. 2 perfect lies. 2 possible truths. I don't want a husband on paper anymore, he said. I don't want rules that keep me safe from the only person who ever felt like home. I don't want to keep pretending that touching you by accident is enough. I want you, Ethan. Not for the house. Not for the will. Not because anyone is watching. I want you when no one is watching. But only if I haven't ruined it beyond repair. It would be beautiful to say I ran into his arms. That love solved everything in one breath. That 12 years of silence disappeared because Caleb finally found words. But real love is not a movie scene, no. Matter how much golden light falls across a cabin floor. Real love sometimes stands very still because it has been hurt too carefully to trust joy right away. I looked at the rings. Then at Caleb. I don't know how to believe you yet, I said. He nodded. Then don't yet. What? Don't believe me because I said it once. Let me prove it. Slowly. Honestly. Without hiding behind fake paperwork. I wanted that. I hated how badly I wanted that. And if I leave tomorrow? His face flinched, but he did not look away. Then I'll let you. And I'll still tell the truth. That was the difference. Not the jealousy. Not the bar. Not the almost kiss. That sentence. The first love Caleb offered me that did not try to hold me in place. I did not put the ring back on that night. I left it on the table between us. Caleb slept on the couch. I slept in the guest room with the door unlocked for the first time since we arrived. In the morning, I found coffee outside my door, exactly how I liked it, with a note beside the mug. No pressure. No performance. Just breakfast if you want it. I stood there for a long time, holding the note. Downstairs, Caleb was outside chopping wood in the cold, his ring no longer on his finger. Not because it meant nothing. Because he finally understood it had to mean more than proof. More than fear. More than a lie we used to survive the truth. 3 weeks later, the estate lawyer confirmed the house was his. The paper marriage had done what it was supposed to do. It saved the cabin. But by then, the paperwork felt like the least important thing we had signed. Caleb asked me to stay through winter. Not as his husband. Not as his fake anything. Just as Ethan. Just as the person he wanted to know without rules. I said yes to staying. I did not say yes to forever. Not yet. But one evening, when snow started falling over the lake, Caleb stood beside me on the porch and reached for my hand. He stopped halfway, waiting. Asking without words. This time, I met him in the middle. His fingers closed around mine, warm and careful. No crowd. No lawyer. No stranger at a bar. No one. To convince. Still fake. I asked softly. Caleb looked at our joined hands, then at me. No, he said. Not anymore. And maybe that was where our real marriage began. Not at the courthouse. Not in front of a judge. Not with a ring slipped on for appearances. It began in the quiet after the pretending ended, when the man I loved finally stopped using fear as a language and chose the truth, even though he knew I might not be ready to answer. Because love does not become real when people call it real. It becomes real when someone is finally brave enough to stop lying about how much it hurts to lose you.